I'm trying to think, where would you see someone like you and someone like Pat together?
Retirement centre.
What would you be doing at a retirement centre?
Giving him his pills.
To shut me up. Yeah.
Okay, you let me know when you're ready, Alex.
Ready? Oh, we got music.
I'm on my way to Brighton to meet up with this group of men who work with an organisation called A Band of Brothers. They have these groups who work with men coming out of prison and who are in vulnerable situations. And they do these weekends away where they have this rite of passage to being a man. I'm really interested in the work that A Band of Brothers does because they have this generational aspect to it where they have older mentors who've been through similar positions to the younger men that they work with. And I just want to know more about that relationship, the dynamics between the older men and the younger men, and basically what it is that they get from being in this group all together.
Have I got to behave?
Ronnie, if that's been a prerequisite, we wouldn't have fucking invited you.
That's really lovely, isn't it?
Before I started ABOB, I thought it was going to be another counselling sort of thing, another therapy group that wasn't going to work, but I'd just go to just to see how it goes. The best thing today is the fact that I don't get told what to do. They've never once told me, this is how you got to do it, this is what you got to do, this is how this works, this is how this works.
Well, when I was younger, I tried the counsellors, but then they sit in that chair and they go, oh yeah, this is how you're supposed to live your life. You'll sit there and tell me your shit, and the shit that's actually happened to you, and then I'll sit there and go, hang on, he's willing to open up to me, so I'm going to be willing to open up to you, instead of this dude just sitting there with his legs crossed, just looking down on me, because apparently you're better than me. And
it's like a shared vulnerability.
Yeah.
When you see someone else's vulnerability or another man's vulnerability, there's a sense of I can really trust that man. And that's what I feel.
I've been in and out of prison since I was 14. I've got 70 police convictions, and it was only since coming out of prison the last time, that was 3 years ago, and I found the Band of Brothers, and I'm not there yet, but I'm slowly getting myself more in my body. I think that's the key to all of this, is feeling everything that's going on inside instead of trying to run away from it. Like anxiety, anger, fear, sadness. It's getting me a long way. I think that's kind of where us men go wrong, is we're trying to run away from our shit that's inside.
There are men and young men in this circle who've been in the care system, who've been to prison, who perhaps have experienced things in their childhoods that nobody should ever experience. A Band of Brothers is about us as a community of older men reaching out a hand to those young men and saying, we're here for you.
So while I would have really liked to have gone on one of these rites of passage weekends that A Band of Brothers does, they don't let women go on them, and they don't really like filming to happen there, understandably, because it's quite an intimate thing which they do there. So after speaking to the guys at this group which they set up, I wanted to speak to a few of them by themselves. I wanted to speak to Pat because he just seemed absolutely lovely, and I wanted to speak to Ben because while he didn't speak a lot in the group that I was at, what he did say kind of sparked my interest a bit and made me wonder what his experience was and what his thoughts were behind A Band of Brothers and masculinity generally. Is that genuinely the toilet?
Yeah, it's a whole sawdust in it.
That you helped make that?
Yeah.
Nice work. A lot of the people that seem to have been through A Band of Brothers have gone through systems like care or prison, or they've gone through mental health services, and these are all really official professional things that they've gone through, or you sit opposite somebody whose job it is. Is the solution always more provisions and the government doing more stuff, or are there other ways that you can within a community provide networks and support and stuff like that?
Oh, I've done everything else, all the psychotherapies and everything else, where I've just been pushed into it. If you're pushed into something, you just don't want to do it. You don't want to take part. You don't give 100%.
Communities need to be enabled to help themselves. You know, people are very isolated now, aren't they? A lot of problems along mental health is isolation. It is helpful to have that professional kind of input, but I think we're volunteers and we're a community, so we share a lot of stuff, not because we're being paid for it, because we want to do it, because we all believe that a social change needs to happen.
When I first went to Band of Brothers, I wasn't used to seeing geezers crying or just getting emotional over stuff. So it was a big old change for me.
But did that then let you feel like you could show emotion?
I've always been really bad with showing emotion or talking about gear. It's just I don't want to express it to other people. You know, I don't want to show weakness.
I mean, there's that idea, people always say guys find it harder to talk about their feelings than women. Do you think that's true?
There's a lot of the old kind of Victorian stiff upper lip thing, especially in British societies, you know, where you don't show those things. It's like putting on armour, putting on camouflage. In a band of brothers, that is, if someone shows a vulnerability, you actually think, actually, I can trust that guy because he's being honest.
What do you think are the issues that, like, quite a few men are dealing with that I guess we're not really talking about?
It's talking alone. Because who do you talk to? Just everything stays here, and you're just emotionally disconnected from everybody. Other than Band of Brothers, I've got nobody to talk to, and it has been built up before, which is why it's caused me a lot of problems.
It's interesting when I talk to you because it's like you have so many interesting things to say. But I still feel even when I chat to you, like there is a little bit of holding some stuff.
That's because of one of the things the Band of Brothers tell us is like, it's your story. It's not everybody else's story. So if you're gonna give it to anybody else, then let it be about you. And I'm trying to explain. There's a lot of things in there that are just linked to others.
Okay, I'm interested in that kind of relationship between like the older generation, the younger generation, and kind of what you see being your role in that, like what you get out of it.
I think it's really important that communities are cross-generational. I think when you start segregating, an awful lot is lost. That energy, I think that's what, you know, our energy, at my age, my energy starts to dip. But when these guys come in with this like anything's possible energy.
What about you? How do you see Pat as like a person in your life?
There's a lot of things that I like that he likes, like the bushcraft and just being outdoors. Very laid back and really easy to connect with.
Probably both coming from working class backgrounds as well.
Yeah, it's a real struggle to bond with privileged, not privileged as such, the ones that act more privileged.
That makes so much sense,
less down to earth.
A lot of, say, working class they would have gone into trades, apprenticeships, which isn't happening so much anymore. I think there's a lot of emphasis on schools and academic achievement, and the actual practical skills are being lost.
There is people that just aren't made for office jobs, and they need to be more hands-on.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Did you have like, I guess, role models or like a strong relationship with like your dad or uncles or other people growing up?
No, not at all. Really, I just grew up on my own in a way, through the care system. Didn't care about old people. They say it's respect your elders, but it was quite hard for me to do as a youngster because all I heard was people barking orders at me. So I didn't have to listen to them or respect them or care what they said.
Did you say, Ben, you got a daughter?
Son.
You got a son?
Yeah.
Wow, so you were talking about the older generation, but you're already the older generation.
Yeah, he's 7 next month.
Okay.
So he's getting on a bit. At the beginning of Band of Brothers, they ask you, where do you want to be, what do you want? I told them one of the main things I wanted was stability, because I was facing prison sentences again and just not finding anything to do in my life. I needed the change, and I found it. It's now like full-time work, got my son every weekend, a nice house. So I've got to where my goal was.
When you're thinking about your son, how do you decide what kind of dad you want to be?
It's quite hard with the masculinity thing. You don't want him to overshow emotion, because he'll cry over anything then. But I want him to be emotionally connected.
You want him to be balanced, right?
Yeah, I want him to be balanced, because I was shut off for years, which led me down paths of aggression and just not bonding with no one. And I don't want that for him.
What do you want to do? Do some gardening. I would actually love to. Like, I'm a city girl, you know. Look, with these nails, I never do any gardening ever.
Yeah, I can tell, really.
You can tell. I don't have a garden.
Don't London have allotments?
Allotments? Only on EastEnders?
Yeah.
Or patches of grass next to roadsides?
Roundabouts. Look at the state of the grass. Do you want to do some weeding?
Are these weeds?
Yeah, most of them are.
But they're pretty.
Yeah, weed is just a plant in the wrong place.
All right, okay.
So.
Do you know about gardening?
Oh, I can dig.
I mean, this is like borage. That's like bees love that. So
right.
Milk thistle.
Tell me what to do.
Just get that underneath there.
Yeah.
And lift that, and then you're going to pull. Once that's loosened a little bit, then you've got to get all these little bits out like that.
With my hands?
With your hands.
With my actual hands?
With your actual hands.
That's what you wanted, wasn't it?
Yeah. In fact, you said you're actually a granddad.
I am actually a granddad.
Do you see yourself as a granddad most of the time for these guys?
Not really.
We're in our mid-20s.
No, I don't see.
Say that. I'm sure you said
my
that.
My role is I'm an elder, which is I suppose like a granddad in a way.
You got children then?
Yeah, I got 3. One girl, 2 boys.
Having sons, do you reckon that helps you when it comes to like working with the guys in a group?
Absolutely. I think I'd say my kids were my biggest teachers actually.
What makes you want to go and work even more with other guys?
I lived in France for a long time, like in isolation. I came back to the UK and I got involved. I missed communities, so I got involved with communities. And if you'd have asked me that, say, a year before that, about working with young people, I would have said I couldn't think of anything worse.
Say, for example, now, when you look at like the way, I will say, the media portrays things, it's always like generationally, they're like, oh, young people are like this and old people are like this. It's like they're pitted against each other. Like young people are completely different, especially in like things like Brexit or whatever. When I chat to you, both of you here, it feels like there's none of that. It feels like you've got a lot of common factors. Or like most importantly, it's respect. Do you know what I mean? It's a respect between generations.
It's a symbiosis, it's a respect both ways. You can't demand to be respected because you're older. And the young need to be respected in the same way. You know, they're the guys of the future, so it's a two-way thing.
The generational gap ain't just youngsters against olders, it's olders against youngsters, it's judgmental.
Yeah.
What do you think old people judge young people for?
Just misunderstanding, it's not being able to understand where a person's coming from.
What do you think are the stereotypes that like older generations have about younger people?
I can see sometimes like fear on people's faces just because they see a group of younger people together. But that's them jumping to the assumption that that younger group's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because of what they've seen through media.
Say, for example, if we'd acknowledge that there's like been a separation between generations, how do you decide to tell them how you've decided what kind of man to be? How do you kind of build that?
We'd ask them that question.
Yeah?
You'd ask them that question, is that the man you want to be? There's no kind of prescribed formula to it, I wouldn't have said.
So Ben, for example, if you're trying to think about what kind of man you want to be, what do you base that off?
There's two ways you can look at it. There's obviously the man you don't want to be, so you can bounce off of that, and I see a lot of that.
What kind of man do you not want to be?
I don't want to be this character that's just lost and just doesn't know what I'm doing. I want to know what I'm doing. I don't want to sort of... Lost people end up usually turning to crime and drugs, alcohol, because they haven't got a path. Being the man that I want to be is just, you look at a lot of other people and you see happiness, the stability that they've got, and you aspire to do that.
Oh look, is that potato?
Well done.
Is that potato?
You caught your very own potato. You can take that home with you and put it on the mantelpiece. And if you watch it very close, it will turn into a bag of chips.
I want to put it back in the ground. So I really enjoyed the conversation that I had with Pat and Ben. Just like many of the others I've had in this series, it felt really open and interesting. And I thought, as a person, not just as a journalist, I've had a lot of my own kind of ideas challenged. There's been lots of food for thought. And I'd like to hear what you guys have liked in particular and what you would like to see us do in the future. Like, comment and subscribe to this video to keep up to date with everything that we're doing. Thank you.